Hello and welcome to my channel, Lumiere18. It's been a little while since an upload. There's been quite a bit going on, including a trip up to the Kimberleys in the top end of Australia. Hopefully I'll be uploading some video of the aviation component of that trip, which will include, well, it included some helicopter flights, some seaplane flights, landing on a dirt strip in the outback of Australia in a grand caravan. So it was quite a trip from an aviation perspective. You'll also notice, looking at the screen, not the normal Qantas A320 sitting on the ground. We have the classic Lockheed Super Constellation L1049, the classic. We're looking at the classic livery, the Flying Dutchman, and where else would you have it but sitting at Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, sitting on a apron out in the open away from the terminals, because of course when you start the engine on these things they churn out a fair bit of smoke. Beautiful sunset, and you can see the KLM original vintage livery, De Vliegende Hollander. Apologies for the mispronunciation. So I've been flying this for a few days. It's one of the reasons why I haven't been uploading. A few days is a bit of an exaggeration. It's actually been a little bit longer than that, but not flying that frequently. Getting to know this airplane. So far we've been on about 3 or 4 flights. First of all, just to, after purchase, getting in and taking it off the ground. So got it into the air and got the feel, and the rest has been trying to learn to start the engines. We've done one flight, proper flight, actually 2 proper flights, one from Melbourne to Sydney. That actually has been the smoothest flight so far, and it was probably my second flight in the bird. Followed by another flight yesterday from Amsterdam to Paris, so we're about to repeat that. This time actually recording it for posterity and cleaning up a few things on navigation. Now, what level are we doing this at? Well, there's a lot to do in this airplane. The app comes with an excellent set of AI assistants. When we have a look inside the plane, you'll notice that there are 3 positions: the pilot, autopilot, or pilot, co-pilot, and engineer. There's also the radio position, which most of that station is not modeled in here. The engineer, however, is extremely critical. The AI will actually do everything for you. For the engines, they pretty much control the engines, and the pilot focuses on flying the plane. That's not exactly how I'm a fan of simming, where you let software do it. Part of the point of flying a plane like this, as far as I'm concerned, is to get to know the engines. The sound of them is absolutely beautiful, as you'll see in a minute. But more importantly, to try and understand how they operate. I generally use turbines, jet turbines, a lot, and they're pretty straightforward to run and very rarely give you any problems. Pretty much once you get them going, you hardly even need to look at them until you land. Whereas these require constant maintenance. Now I'm still getting on top of that. In fact, my so-called landing yesterday, which I burst the tires and wound up stuck on the runway, also landed with 2 engines that stopped operating upon landing. So there's still a few things that I'm actually missing. We flew there without a problem, but something about the descent, possibly I had the power settings a little bit too low and stalled the engines with too low oil pressure, etc. That's what I'm thinking was the case. So we've been having a bit of a look. I have done some screen captures so far from my flights, so I'll share those with you ever so briefly. The Red Wings app actually comes out of the box with the Air France livery. That was one of the first times I was in the plane having a bit of a poke around. Learning a plane you're not very familiar with at all is a lot more difficult when all the panels are in French. Just a fair warning, you might want to choose one of the different liveries if you want English on the panels. Makes a mild difference. The TWA, that's again when I was having a bit of a look and detected that the panels are in English with that livery. Departing Melbourne. That's actually the first departure and first flight. You will note once we get the engines going, we get the beautiful flames out of the engines. Whoops, wrong direction. A beautiful early sunrise departure. And you will notice actually that they have the Dutch flag on the tips of the blades, which look fantastic when they're spinning in the light. It's actually a good example of the coloring there on the blades. She is an absolutely beautiful plane. Don't ask me why it's a she, but apparently it is. Here we are over Albury, on the border of Victoria and New South Wales in Australia. In fact, you can go back and have a look at that in Bing or Google Maps and find our exact location. That was the first flight where I was trying to use the needles to navigate by, and obviously using the airport VOR for navigation. Now, I don't fly a lot by needles. It's been a long time since I have. Obviously with the glass cockpits, using GPS and your normal fixes and waypoints rather than following non-directional beacons and VORs. I have done so in the Airbus, but only on the odd occasion, either when required or occasionally just trying to practice, because it's been a while. Which has come in quite handy. I managed to find Charles de Gaulle Airport yesterday, so I think we're doing okay. You'll see that we very rapidly learn what happens when you close the oil cooling ducts while sitting on the ground. Your engines catch fire. Nicely modeled, and that is actually firing the fire extinguisher on one of those engines at the time. Sitting in the hangar. Nice beauty shot. Again. Now, it seems as though damage is nicely modeled in this. I've yet to throw a propeller. Mind you, I haven't flown it that much. However, it is you really need to keep an eye on your speeds, especially at lower altitudes. As I discovered, this is showing a lot of damage. We've got elevator damage, aileron damage, and we basically don't have rudders. So we can see on the wings there, on the tail elevators, and the rudders are virtually missing. The plane's almost impossible to control under those conditions. Funnily enough, I was flying in autopilot. It seemed to be handling all right, because this damage happened while on the climb out. When I disengaged autopilot, we basically dropped like a rock. That was after a fairly decent flight. I was trying to navigate across to New Zealand, and our center of gravity was pretty far forward, so I'm not sure whether it was loss of elevators, being nose heavy that caused us to nosedive, or a combination of both. Probably a combination of both. View from inside using the drone camera. Nice red light in the cockpit. Won't be making any jokes about the red light. Coming in for a landing in Launceston, Tasmania. So while trying to get to know, I was flying out of Melbourne, then using the Avalon VOR, and then across to Launceston via King Island and Wynard. absolutely beautiful simulation, but I must admit I love hearing the engines running. And here we have the first flight at full cruise altitude, which has only happened once actually, going from Melbourne to via Launceston to Christchurch, New Zealand. Haven't quite got the navigation across large expanses of water, and I'm pretty sure I either miscalculated, fell short of fuel and hit the drink before hitting New Zealand, or I missed New Zealand entirely. Again, a bit of practice and reading needs to happen on ocean crossings using VORs. Got some nice weather. And this was yesterday, hard landing in Paris. Either hard or fast, I'm not sure. Either way, I burst the tires and could not taxi off the runway. Very nice. Beautifully modeled airplane. Normally I don't like to show all the mistakes and the damage first, obviously. Not a great way to start. But I think it really goes to show that the plane is beautifully modeled in the simulator. So, back across, let's hop in. Let's have a bit of a closer look around the outside of the aircraft. You can see nicely rendered. We've got the rivets. We'll see if we can... Got the active flaps there. We do have some equipment that has been supplied, including the extremely necessary oil drip trays. Why it's only under engine number 4, or sorry, engine number 1, I can't quite tell you, but it is. We have our forward cargo bay open there. Sorry, no, that is the landing gear. As you can tell, I'm still getting to know her. And we have pitot covers, pitot tube covers. We have covers over our vents, known as the Pegasus. So let's pull back, elevate up a bit so we can get a bit of a view. And that sun is setting extremely quickly, so how about we get a bit more time up our sleeve so we can have a nice sunrise, sorry, sunset. That'll do by the time we're up and running, because it does obviously take a while longer. So a bit of a look around the aircraft. Actually, let's go back to the drone. Maybe we'll slow down the camera a little bit. Not to 0, not to 7. How about somewhere? These dials are painful. Ah, there we go, 3. Why we're changing our elevation, I don't know. And we're inside the cockpit. So, having a look around here, we have the radio station. As I mentioned, that's not particularly modeled. There's very little in the way of controls on that. Let's have a bit of a look here. So we have our overhead panel. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this aircraft, it's probably worthwhile having a bit of a read. It is one of the first planes that made commercial travel at high altitude possible with a pressurized passenger cabin. Not the first, I believe, but it definitely is one of the earlier ones and changed international air travel. So we have quite a lot over here at the engineers panel, and the engineers panel does require constant supervision and maintenance during the flight. As you can see here, we have throttle controls, mixture, fuel flow controls, feathering, everything is over here. So a lot of controls. We have the door inside the cockpit, pressurization. Down there we've got our life rafts, we've got fuel dumps. We can open our door, and we have somebody there to greet us. It's all very good. So let's pull back and let's have a bit of a closer look in the cockpit. So on the side here we have the tablet. This isn't going to be a full run through, by the way. I'm essentially going to be running the flight, but I'll be a little bit chattier in the beginning. As I said, this is going to be a let's say intermediate flight with the intermediate knowledge. I've still got more to learn. However, I can get the engine started, taken off, engage the autopilot. I've managed to capture a glide slope and land at an airport using the instruments. So we've got a fair bit of knowledge under the belt already. Almost all the videos that I've seen have been relying on the AI engineer to do everything in regards to the engines. Just one other quick thing I like to set here is our external view, because we've got some different ones for this aircraft, and in particular to hear and see these little puppies get started. That's a nice one, but we can't see all of them. There we go. So if we have a look over here, we've got our, that's a bit close, isn't it? There we go. So we've got our captain, our co-pilot, our flight engineer. We can get them to give us vocal instructions, and I'm looking for realistic flight, of course. Flight engineer, you can remove their seats from view. Flight engineer seat can get in the way sometimes, as can the co-pilot, so we'll get rid of those. And we'll have the pilot, co-pilot, and flight engineers speak out. Yesterday they were telling me to shut down engines 2 and 3. I don't know if that's the reason why they were off by the time I hit the ground, but the RPMs and pressures and manifold pressures and everything seemed to be fully functioning. So I'm not sure if it was a glitch or what. But that's the great thing about the sim, is there's lots to learn. So you can see we have a fairly comprehensive checklist here. Now I know that being a good aviator is being good at doing checklists. However, we are in a sim. Personally, I prefer to practice systems and procedures so that you ensure you get everything on the checklist that's necessary. So I might not always be referring to this. Slightly more casual approach. So we've got that. Center of gravity and loading. Now we're doing Amsterdam to Paris, so it won't be a real long flight. So we can probably keep this to, at the moment, we're set for a national configuration. Which, somewhere around here, it gives an indication of how much fuel that actually, here we go. So international flight will give us 6 hours. We've got a national flight which gives us 4 hours. That actually should be more than enough for this particular flight. And if we go to our center of gravity, now I'm still getting this figured out. Checking the manual, it wants us to be sitting at around 20%. I have yet to find a trim chart that relates to that. So it says always try and target 20%. Personally, I'd prefer to know how to trim the aircraft properly based on different centers of gravity. We do have a large trim wheel over here, so we can do that if we need to. So we're set for national. And I can't say I'm a fan of the interface. We can move our passengers around, but it Doesn't give us much feedback until we hit payload. It's brought us right back to 22%. So try to get as close as possible. So I might, to start with, see if we can move that baggage to back here instead. Maybe we'll move a couple. Let's see what this does. 28%. Well, that definitely didn't help, did it? So we need more in the front, less in the back. How about we have 1? Let's check it. 17. Too far forward. Let's see what that does. 21%. You know what? This is a bit weird. It's bringing us towards the center line, but the instructions are talking 20%, which would be looking at the front limits. As I said, still a lot to read. Well, what else have we got over here anyway? General status, nothing's running at the moment, so obviously everything's dead and not working. We can issue orders. This is particularly handy if we've got the AI. You can set your altitude, you can set your speed, you can have your heading managed if you set pilot on the AI. Obviously we've got all that set to manual at the moment, and you've also got failures in there as well. So pretty decent little app, actually. Decent little aircraft. A little bit on the expensive side, but I particularly wanted to fly the Super Constellation, particularly in the Flying Dutchman livery. Maybe living in Utrecht, Netherlands for a while helped with that, and having bought a Super Constellation Flying Dutchman model at Schiphol Airport, or in that terminal just behind us, back over there somewhere. Actually on the other side of that sign, I believe in there is where the shops are. It's great having been there as well. So let's get this on the road. So to start with, let's open the door. Let's get our cargo bays open. I won't use the SIM luggage services, but if you'd like to now go out and we can have a look. There we go. So we've got the stairs. I think we need to remove our covers and our services as we start to prepare. We won't remove our chocks quite yet, and we'll enable ground power. So there's going to be a bit of zipping around in this cockpit because I have yet to set up my hotkeys properly, but we'll just pop over here and we'll turn on our ground power, and we'll get our volts from the cart. There we go, 30 volts, and we'll turn on our battery, and I'll continue down this panel. Generators not yet. There's our red and white light. Usually during preparation we'll stick with the white light, and we'll turn on our instruments, turn on our radios, turn on the NISA. I believe that has something to do with high frequency antenna, which might be related over here as well. Do not be surprised if I'm incorrect on that. We have our engine analyzer over here. I'm not sure if it's on at the moment. No, it wouldn't be. And we'll back over here. So we'll turn on our nav lights for the moment. Chart lights, panel lights, cabin lights, our various cockpit lights. Thank you very much. And we'll come up to our top panel, and we will turn This is not the order of the checklist, I can tell you that for sure. These are the emergency shut-off valves. Those are the fuel dump valves. There are a couple of buttons and levers which are a bit harder to use the mouse for, so you need to hop between positions. So turn on our services, and our boosters are turned off. Great. We'll turn our radios on. Transponder, nav 2. Come down here. I should check what the weather is and set the pressure, but I'll just be really lazy and hit B to set that automatically, and we're almost at sea level. Being in the Netherlands, surprise, surprise. Right. So we come over here and we have our flight control booster for aileron and rudder turned on. Throttle all the way back. Our prop pitch set to high. Our flaps are up. Excellent. All those are as they should be. Okay. Now, on to the engine part of the process. So popping over here, we need our carburetor set to cold. Cowl flaps open. Now the cowl flaps we can actually see are the vents on the outside of the engines, and if we open one of those up, there we go, we can see the flaps open. Maybe a different view from here, you can see that one would be closed over there. There we are. So they absolutely must be open for airflow on the ground when we're not moving at speed in the warmer conditions without the airflow. Oil cooler flaps open, pretty much the same thing. I'm yet to tell exactly where these are on the engines. There we go, and let's just make sure. Cowl flaps open, 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 and oil cooler flaps all open. Excellent. Okay, so our prop pitch again set to high. We won't be touching the turbocharger for the moment, which I'm still in the process of figuring out. Don't know how to switch them off. We can switch them on by hitting them forward, and our fuel consumption skyrockets. Also, our torque pressure goes up, and manifold pressure when we use it, I've noticed. Still working out the relationship of those. So moving across, mixture set to rich, and we will open our fuel selection. And before we start our engines, we need high fuel pressure for engine start on the ground. Now this is one of those that's a little bit tricky with the mouse. There we go, and we leave that one in that position. So we are, for all intents and purposes, for the most part, ready for our engine start. Okay, we're going to have to set our radios, I guess. Now, pardon me for the cough there. Unfortunately, in the trip up to Darwin, we did also get COVID on the very last day. So it was good. It didn't ruin our trip, but we were stuck in a hotel for 5 days in Broome. That was also a positive bit because we were in a decent hotel with a nice view. So of all places to be stuck in, that was it, rather than in the middle of nowhere, far from medical help, as some others were, and they had to be flown out at great expense. So we're just looking around the cockpit at the moment. I'm debating whether or not to share the route with you. I can flash that up on screen, I guess, if I need to. having a look, we basically have wind coming from the west, a relatively strong wind, so I think we want to use something like runway 27 if there is one. I have the charts which I can flash up on screen now if I remember, but I can have a look at those on my tablet so I know where we're taxiing to take off. Okay, I guess we are there. So, first thing we need to do is engine number 3. We need to turn the ignition to both starters. I'll turn on our position lights so we have our red blinking light. There we go. You can see it on the ground. The old school rotating beacons, not electronic flashies. There we go. So, over here on the cart, engine number 3, hit the primer and selector. Pop outside.
5, 6.
There we go. Our RPM sitting at about 9. That's on the low side for a start. So maybe we'll just bring her up to around 12. Manifold pressure sitting at 30. No torque pressure showing yet. And we might not actually see much there unless we start hitting the supercharger. Again, a part I'm still figuring out. Okay, and we'll turn on the generator. There we go, generator up, and we can test the voltage over there. Number 3, and we've got voltage. Excellent. So, let's bring engine number 4 up. Ignition and start.
3, 4, 5, 6.
And normally you'd have the doors closed and stairs removed. See a bit of smoke blowing there. We've already loaded up, so let's get these doors, stairs, and everything taken care of. There we go. All the service is gone. We can get the cart removed soon. And generator number 4 coming up. Let's test it. Yep. So we're over to number 2. Ignition and start.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Engine 2 ignition off.
Whoop. Engine 2 ignition off. That would be because we didn't turn it on over here. Let's try that one again. Back to 2.
1,
Prime it and ignite.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Let's get the generator on. Let's test it. Number 3. Start.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Again. Too busy talking. Same mistake. Let's try that. I guess that's why you use checklists, eh?
1, 2,
wobble there, you can see vibration in the wing. It's started. There we go. So let's get that generator on and check it. We're good. Excellent. So it looks like we have consistent rotation over here. Let's go to our engine station. Check all of our dials. So we've got even manifold pressure, slightly lower RPMs on our number one engine, which I believe what we do is we tweak using the throttles back here if we need to. It's only slightly out. Okay, let's bring her up and warm up these engines. So up to 14 RPM. You see flames going out. And my understanding is that was listed as one of the drawbacks of these engines. Very powerful, very efficient, could be very efficient with fuel, but one of the downsides is it can get very, very hot. So they added extra 2-inch plating, I believe, to deal with that. Exactly where, I'm not sure. I suppose back here, around that area. Okay, fuel okay, oil pressure there, oil inlet coming up, cylinder head coming up to temperature. Now, we do have a checklist here if we want to have a bit of a look. So we've got our note and we've got our performance specs. So, for example, rate of climb, power settings, descent and approach, rate of climb, takeoff performance. We're going to need our weights to start with. Again, I'm not sticking with those specs 100% at the moment, although once I'm in flight and I have a moment to think about it, I'm looking at trying to stick as close to them as possible, but I'm still learning, obviously. I was going to have a look over here for something which was to come over to the load. We'll remove ground power. Turn it off over here. There we go. And now our radios. So, our first beacon we want to head to is Pampas, which is actually slightly to the northeast of Schiphol Airport, and that will be on 117.8. There we go. Now, I'm going to set this basically to Paris Orly Airport, which is actually past Charles de Gaulle. It's towards the city center. Debating whether or not we will go to the non-directional beacon so we can fly over the city, and then do a U-bolt, setting us up to land at Charles de Gaulle, or we head straight there. Undecided, we shall see. And what are we going to set for our nav number 2? We should actually set it for EHAM. However, in this case, I'm actually going to set it for our next VOR, which will be Nicky, or Nick, at 117.4. Okay. Now, I will not be using the ATC in the sim because it's a bit of a mess and there's enough to be learning at the moment without coping with that. And I'll leave our transponder on 7,000. Back to our engineering station, have a look. There we go, cylinder head temperatures pretty much in range now. I think we're all good. We notice not a lot of vibration in the steering wheel, however, we shall synchronize. If we notice our spinny dials up here, we'll just synchronize
Synchro
to 1.
on engine 1.
There we go. So they're attempting to synchronize the RPMs to number 1. I think I can ease the RPMs off a bit. Or the manifold pressure. Bit of wobbling there. Okay, so we need to have the map chart for the airport, and the chart will look like, as soon as I get it up on my tablet, possibly up on screen. Apologies if I don't. Come on, because I need to know where to taxi. There we go, skew pull. Let's bring up the map, look at the plates. And okay, so we are parked over there. It's going to be a little bit of a pain to get to. I'm going to be taking off runway 27. So hopefully that'll be straight out that way. Might not be too bad, but it can get a bit fiddly at the other end of the runway. Okay. So, pardon me while I set my desk up. We'll remove the keyboard. Now, taxi. Pardon me. Now, taxiing is a bit tricky in this. I don't actually have rudder pedals. I do use an adjustable lever on my throttle quadrant for nose wheel, and rudder for that matter. But the problem is braking, particularly in this. Controlling the speed, both with reversing for pushback, as well as for braking, is a little bit haphazard, far rougher than preferred. On landing, that's one thing that we do need to consider, and that may be actually why I blew the tires, is that these don't have anti-ABS. So the only way of putting the brakes on, as we can look at the rudder pedals, is it's not doing anything at the moment, is either all or nothing. I don't know why it's doing nothing at the moment. Yeah, but why is the brake not depressing? Probably because of the park brake. So all or nothing. So when I'm landing, I have to rely very much on my reversers. Speaking of reversers, I should be checking that they are working. So we've got our reverse lights there, and
Reverse.
come on.
Reverse.
Yep. And good. So they're all looking fine and sound excellent, actually. So that's the reversers. Just have a look from outside. Okay, so now my understanding is that with the Constellations, they actually didn't use pushback tugs or anything like that. What they actually did was use their thrust reversers, so we'll try and do that. The one danger is using our brakes. We might possibly tip over because, again, we have all brakes or no brakes. I can't partially apply them. So let's see if we can get this done without stalling our engines. We always need to be checking our oil pressures, vacuum pressures as well. If I bring it down too low, let's just demonstrate this. There we go, vacuum pressure kicking in. So we can never have those too low. I'm also still really getting the feel between when to manage the power versus the RPMs. So let me bring the RPMs way down to start with. We need to have a bit of a look around outside before we push ourselves back. I mean, it's a nice quiet part of the airport, so shouldn't be a problem. So let's let the team know. Turn on our nose light. Another annoying thing that I haven't figured out a fix for yet is if I right click on my mouse to make my pointer disappear, it assumes that I don't have the handbrake on. So I'm going to release that, and right now, there we go. So I've got full brakes depressed. The moment I click my mouse button, it releases it, so that's a bit of a pain here. So not an ideal configuration. So let's just pull our throttles back, turn on our reversers, and take off our brakes, and we should slowly start. If I can do this without adding too much power. The way back. Hopefully that's one way to manage it. And I think we're ready to commence our turn. Bit is to not stall the engines, and again I suspect that may be what I actually did when landing yesterday. So we got our park brake on for a moment. Let's just get out and make sure our engines are all okay. All of our RPMs are up. Okay, so that direction. So keep RPMs low. Move off the handbrake. There's a little bit of wobble because we're a bit low on our taxi too slow. Love that steering, it appears though the minute you start going faster, it will happily slide that wheel. And when you put the brakes on, it will suddenly bite in and do a hard turn at the last moment. So it's a bit tricky steering this actually. So slightly. Need to watch that building. It's a bit of a nightmare. That is a definite error in the sim. First things I did is hit that in the 747 when first getting into the sim. Now essentially we need to follow this E5, well B, which turns into E5 all the way down until it takes a dog leg to the right, and then we take the first left, and that should line us up. Traffic around this morning. Now I did make note. I'm not sure whether we're meant to. So we're actually on A. Right, round. Oh, we're doing synchronized spinning. So I've noticed on flight radar you can see spinning aircraft as well. I have a feeling it's because the software doesn't know the direction of travel. I suspect. I'm just guessing. So my habit is to toggle the top hat on my joystick to the left and right to look out the windows, but it's set differently on this aircraft. Right. So this is our right turn I was referring to. External temperature of just over 20 degrees. I could bring up the ATIS, but then it will be annoying us for ages. So, we follow this around here. And as thought, this will be a 12. across the runway. See, it really bites in there. Nothing down there, nothing up there. E4. Now, it's funny the wind shows coming from that direction, even though the sim when it started showed the other direction. I'm going to stick with our plan. And actually the aircraft are all doing this as well. Oh, no, sorry. Windsock was in the right direction. I was back to front. And this is obviously the active runway. So let's drop our flaps to 60 to a takeoff position. Let's extend our lights.
Flaps 60%. Yeah.
There's a bit of a queue, and as I said, we won't be using ATC because it's just not very good in this. Now, if there are simmers listening to this who are probably yelling at their screens, but you should play VATSIM. Quite frankly, I like to fly a little bit more casually than that. I don't want to be stuck on my computer getting clearances through different air control zones. So VATSIM doesn't necessarily suit me. I do like the concept of it, but it's an all or nothing proposition as far as I can tell. Now, the one thing that we didn't do, which I'm just working into my process now, is to turn on the gyroscope, which I can't get from that station. Turn on the gyroscope and cage it so that we can engage our autopilot. Should have done that back on the stand. Hopefully we'll have enough time here. Turn on our park brake because of that mouse thing. And let's just make sure. Still got the pressure up. Maybe we'll just increase our RPM slightly there. Our vacuum pressure. And why is that not disappearing? I would hope it would as we turn our engine power up. We've still got our RPMs quite low. So how about we bring that all the way back down? Whoop, not that far. There we go. I think I need our RPMs increased to deal with that vacuum pressure. The manual is pretty decent. I haven't gone through it fully. It doesn't cover everything. But it's pretty decent. It gives you enough to figure most of it out. Now, hopefully in any minute, I'll be hearing that our gyro has been set, so I can set my autopilot clutch. We'll engage our altitude fix for autopilot.
The gyro is caged.
Gyro is caged. We'll turn on our clutch. It's not allowing me to do. Is that because I've moved the... there we go. Clutch engaged. over there? Oh, no, maybe not. And this tells me that my center of gravity is a little bit forward, so maybe if I can bring our nose up slightly. Let me make sure that's in the right way. Yeah, I think that means roll the screw wheel back for nose up rather than the needle, I'm hoping. Are we still there? Yep. I need to get some control keys assigned so I can move forward in the cockpit. Get a better look out that window without going to external views. There we go, take it off. I think that should be enough to start getting ourselves lined up. Let's get these lights on. See how much quicker we start rolling with the RPM slightly higher. That wheel's doing its biting thing again. It's a little bit of a challenge. Okay, and hold. Okay, so let's get that RPM all the way up again. Okay, increase our throttle. We need our RPMs up around 2,900. It's around there. Yeah, I believe that means we do pull back our RPMs slightly. There we go, and I should check our charts for the rest of the settings, but we'll leave it. So, commence the roll. This isn't going to be the cleanest. I'm not going for style here. Pressure back a bit, and oh, she really wants to take off.
No go speed.
Okay, just letting her back, and up we go. Gear up. Okay, we're up to approaching 600 feet. So nose down, power comes back. Flaps up.
Roger, flaps up.
And we engage autopilot and altitude
Autopilot
hold.
is engaged. Flaps up.
And there we go. So autopilot engaged. So now we want to start our climb. At about that rate should be fine. Now I don't see any of our navigation needles kicking in as of yet. I do have a 4 there. Oh, that's right. It should be behind us, actually. We're to our south, so that might be right. So let's commence our turn. There we go. Needle just kicked in. At least for number 2 did. right. Checking our speed. We are at about 240. And 8,000 feet is our planned cruise altitude. So let's check our climb settings. Okay, we should be at 100, so we should be looking at 1925, around 1900 RPMs. Through our turn. No, we're about there. So, holding our speed, heading towards 4-1. Taking us to the south. Gotta love the Netherlands. In fact, if we're going due south, there is a fairly good chance that we're too close to the coast. It might be Utrecht. Dom in the middle, Utrecht Canal. Canal, possibly. Major train station going through, which is about right. I don't know if it's the right part. No, maybe not. Utrecht may be across over there, actually. Either way, it's off in this direction. Gotta love that audio. Speaking of audio, apologies for the microphone. So you notice 4-1, our distance is moving away. Why that means our arrow is pointing that way, I do not know. 4-2. We are approaching. So if we look at 4-2, again, funny angle because I'm not set up properly, is 117.4. That should be taking us down to Nikki. If we go ahead and bring that to 117.4 to bring that to Nikki, the next one will be Civ or Chivres, which is or something along those lines. Apologies to the French for butchering that. 113.2. Hopefully both of those should be live now. Yep. Okay, moving closer to both of those, and turn a bit to the right there. Both of them are pretty much in line with each other. Approaching 5,000 feet. Nice modeling of marks on the screens there. Checking our speed, being very consistent, which is good. We're going to have to address our mixture before too long and pull it back a little bit more lean. possibly afford to come back a bit on the RPMs. Need to monitor our airspeed. Cameraman 61 in a helo from the looks. Nice large stadium. All their plots are long and thin. Dutch Islands in the Caribbean, I've noticed the same thing. Okay, our speed is falling back slightly. That's fine. We're under 10,000 feet, so being under 250 is no draw on this. We've actually passed 6,500 feet. Maybe I'll just give this a little tweak more. We have 81 nautical miles to our second waypoint. Speed's still dropping a little bit, so I might just there we go. And this is where my reference charts, I should actually be looking quite closely at these. So climb, rate of climb, feet per minute. I don't really need a low blower. I'm assuming that's going to be RPMs rather than maximum rate of climb. Maybe maximum rate of climb, power settings high, cruise power, distance, takeoff. Okay, we're actually picking up a little bit more speed there. So maybe now just ease that off slightly. Okay, maybe I'll level off at 8,500. There we go. And now we'll pull that back to, I think, around 24, I believe was the setting. Let's pop back and have a look. Okay, so in cruise, or let's call it closer to 10,000 feet. I suppose probably require us to drop our power back even more. Watching that speed creeping up. Nice curve to it. Just a wee worried about creeping too high on the speed there. Currently 23.5 nautical miles from 7.4, that would be Nikki. Okay, so we know exactly where we're at. And then the next one should be straight ahead. We've picked up an ILS signal there. So we've got a A320 and a 748 floating around. That's all we can see from within inside our cockpit. We've got no radar, no TCAS, going old school. So we can hop outside and have a bit of a look around. Moments to use the loo. Enjoy the scenery. Okay, well, I'm back. Sort of. Just double checking our progress. Now, speaking of signals, getting nothing here on the NDB signal yet. Still working this out. Automatic direction finder, I'll leave that on there. I did see one video that I did watch where somebody turned the radio off and on again and suddenly it kicked to life. I haven't seen that yet myself. Blinking indication there. Was that actually what that was related to? I don't think so. Never thought so. Otherwise I've just learned something. Nay, didn't think so. That's which side of the ILS I'm on. So 6 nautical miles to go. I'm going to stop talking excessively. I'm sure my voice is sending you to sleep, or worse. I will be turning to our second waypoint. Actually, it looks like we've just passed it. Now, a little bit offset. So time to steer to or to. Our radios. Cam 112.6. Sorry, still getting used to the positioning. Set up 3365. Excellent. Little procedure which I should have done, which this is why I use checklists, is to close my cowl flaps. They don't need to be closed. Come on, close, stay, close, 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 close. Just to make them a bit more streamlined. We don't need the excess air. We also don't need the high fuel pumps, and our oil coolant flaps can close. What we should see as we do that is our oil pressures. Here we go, our oil inlet zip up. Again, that's something that's usually done during the climb out by the engineer, but the workload can get a little bit on the busy side. Now, cylinder head. What to do about this? What does that mean? are fairly moderate at the moment. Manifold pressure is, torque pressure is. I don't know what else we could do to reduce our temperature. Maybe that's a mixture thing. Let's just, actually that'll take time, I would think. So maybe I'll lighten our mixture even more. Although we're still below 10,000 feet, so we'll have to monitor our speed. Okay, I'm going to go back to not talking for a little while, and we will monitor our speed. You'll notice that as we change our mixture, the color of our flame has actually changed. So it's definitely burning hotter. Hop back inside. Go back. Okay, our speed is dropping slightly. I think we can increase those RPMs actually. Still quite high. Slightly different torque pressures. Again, how to monitor and tweak the settings is something I've still got to learn about. Or I could turn on the AI engineer and have it all done for me. I think eventually that will be what I actually do. Once I'm confident that I know what's actually going on over there, so I can do it manually if I desire. And then kick over to the AI engineer to help with the workload. Okay, our speed's going all right. In actual fact, I think cruise, if everything's set up correctly, we should be sitting at about 195 knots. We don't seem too far off that. Whether this is going to have long-term engine damage because of that high cylinder head temperature is the next question. And what to do about it. This is where I'm far from an expert. Sorry, go back to being quiet again. Actually, let's just check our distances. Speed's alright, 11.9. 13.6. And 113.65 to Montdidier. Once again, apologies. 113.65. That looks right according to our track, our route. We don't have a distance. Interesting. Again, this is where my practice with following needles. Why do I not have a distance? Maybe it's just a VOR without DME equipment. Cylinder head temperature is still sitting up really high there. That temperature. Supercharger drive shaft a bit low. I guess for those interested, perhaps we can have a look at this. Let's turn on our blower. I believe these are referred to as high blowers or low blower. As I said, I am unable to figure out how to turn it off. But if we just have a look at our fuel flow as we hit there, and let's add some symmetry. You can see all of them popping up. Torque. Synchro still seems okay. And let's look at our airspeed. Yeah, picking up a little. Navigation, I had a little bit of a challenge locating the airport. The needles unfortunately failed me, so I used the distance measuring equipment to find the way to get closer to the airport. I had two different VORs set up and managed to triangulate it, find the airport, and landed, at which point I smashed the wheels on landing, as you saw in the pictures earlier. I expect this next leg to be after we hit Montdidier. Didier. Again, apologies for my pronunciations. It's 33 nautical miles from there, almost due south. 175 degrees actually, to Charles de Gaulle. Now, if we start thinking about our descent, we're at 8,500 feet, so we'll need to scrub off 5,500 feet, which is 17.5 nautical miles descent distance. Add 12 nautical miles for the approach. So basically, once we hit that waypoint, we want to, although it'll be a westerly landing, I haven't checked weather. Let's check our weather. LFPG Charles de Gaulle. So currently Currently winds 300 at 5 knots. Overcast okay. Conditions. So we'll keep our landing set up for 26 right. So there's 4 runways at this airport. All headed roughly the same direction. So to the one side of the terminal we have 27 right and left, and the other side of the terminal we have 26 right and left. So we'll be landing to the left of the terminal on the right runway. On passing over the VOR. Should be down there 6 nautical miles. Let's hop outside, see if we can see it. Anything to see? Not necessarily. I guess it'd be around there somewhere. So we'll wait for the needle to swing around and then we'll turn and be on track. So if you're a regular, I know there's a few, don't know how many actually sit and watch the videos all the way through. I hope you've been doing well. It's been a little while. It's definitely been a challenging couple of months. As I said, getting COVID and being in isolation was less than fun. Luckily the symptoms were just like a bit of a flu. Lethargic, very heady. Croaky at one point. Okay. Watching our distance. We're not getting closer or further. So we're passing directly to our left, something over there. 4. So we're moving away from it now. So we shall turn to our next heading. On all this time. I did notice those earlier, but and straighten out. And this should be roughly 30 nautical miles. So radios. What are these? I haven't played with those. I'll play with them right now. 113.65. Now, the next one I put in is the one I struggled with last time. Let's put in the airport 115.35. According to Sky my vector, that should be Charles de Gaulle. Okay. If we look at a route, it should be a left turn. Okay, that all looks correct. So as we cross over our next VOR, that should be reading about 33 nautical miles. We'll actually start our descent at that point, maybe a little bit after. She's big and heavy, so might give ourselves a bit of extra time to slow down. You'll notice here our total weight is 98.7 thousand pounds at the moment. Very heavy, considering the number of passengers. It's quite low compared to modern day airliners. I think a fully loaded A320 is around 73,000 pounds. I might be wrong on that, but it's in that sort of area, and that's a long distance flight, more passengers, more cargo. It's all this heavy steel, and I'm sure those engines carry a lot of weight. Turbines. Fairly directly over this VOR. Nautical miles for this particular leg in totality. So we seem to be pushed a little bit to the right. So I might just overshoot this turn slightly. A little bit of moisture around, clouds over there. Great how they modeled the sun has picked up the paint on the props there, but over there in the dark it's not. It's great. check over here. Again, that cylinder head, I've got to do some reading to get a handle on that. Carburetor air seems a little bit on the cool side. Now as we pass through 5,000 feet, I think I need to make sure, remember to go rich or auto mixture. Also need to open those cowl flaps and oil flaps and increase our engine pressures. Actually, it's less necessary on descent. Or supercharger low. Again, I'm not sure how to set that to low. Before landing. So after landing, it wants us to open the flaps, the oil cooler flaps, but I think we're a bit busy steering. The one time that I have done a full complete flight and landed, the engines died in the ass as soon as I slowed down, obviously because I didn't get to that quick enough. They actually all caught fire. I did make it off the runway though, to the taxiway at least. So I think I'm just going to, without using AI, I'm going to incorporate that into my descent procedure, maybe just before the approach. Okay, I'm expecting that to be 33 nautical miles as we pass over this beacon. And that will take us in line for the airport, going from north to south for westerly landing. So we might not even aim directly at it, but aim out. The left of the beacon. It's starting to pivot, maybe. Either way, at 33, I'm turning regardless. Approach at least 30 nautical miles there. Geez, we almost need to be at 45 degrees out. That'll do for the moment. Landing. Okay, so as far as radios are concerned, ILS is 111.95. Now what I actually want to do here, whoops, our needles have all decided to swing around. Oh no, that's right. I was going offset anyway. Idiot. There's got to be an upper panel light here I can turn on. It doesn't matter. So we currently have the airport set on nav 2. I'll set nav 1 to 111.95 for the ILS. Excellent. So yeah, you would actually hope that it was over there. We're heading south to the east of the airport for a landing to the west. Gonna give myself some extra distance to slow down because she's big and heavy compared to what I'm used to. So I'm thinking at 20 nautical miles I will start my descent. My target altitude will be 3,000 feet. Let me just check the charts. For ILS 26 right. At 4,000 feet. So let's say 4,000 feet. We need to scrub off 4 times 3, that's 12. Plus the extra distance. Yeah. Descent now, so we can bring our RPMs right the way back, that down to a minimum. We can start nosing up. Now if our airspeed is 220, half that, about 110 feet per minute, or 1,100 feet per minute is what we're light chasing. Back even more because we're just watching our airspeed. Got a localizer light on. Is that the airport over there? Offset from the airport. Airspeed is still creeping up a little. So let's bring it down to 14, our absolute minimum. That's down the minimum. perfectly. Don't know why the ILS is further across, unless it's up the far end of the runway. I could check the chart, but I won't. Five and a half thousand feet. And here we are, 24.7, 24.8. Again, it shows that we're actually going away from the airport. That doesn't seem right. And this is pretty much what happened to me last night. I'm going to go after our ILS needle. Or another way to do it, I'm going to bring on localizer mode on the autopilot. That should take over our turn. Bring our mixture up. Okay, so it claims I'm in line with the localizer now, does it? 4,000 feet. Come on, Arrow. .2. Now, if you recall, I thought VOR 1 was set for Charles de Gaulle, which actually puts it 22 nautical miles in that direction. However, the ILS is set up I hope it's the right frequency and not picking me up for the wrong airport. See if this looks interesting. There's an airport over there. You know what? I'm going to assume it is. If that's the case, it's bringing me in at a nice 45-degree angle. Let's get our lights on. Let our cabin crew know landing is soon. Okay, if you're noticing, our airspeed is dropping a little. We're actually at a point where we could be deploying flaps now if we really wanted to. And there we go. So, I'm going to be estimating what's our heading. Almost due west. I can't see the airport though. Or the runways. There's definitely someone there. Is that one of the runways? It's not very clear. It's definitely not in line with the runway there. I have a feeling I'm offset too far to the left, so we shall just for the moment turn that off. Let's come across over here. just at dusk, so we can't rely 100% on the runway lights. I'm watching my instruments. Nope. Turn on the localizer. Let it do what it thinks is right. Nautical miles out. Ah, there we go. Lights have come up finally. Yeah, we're still to the left. It seems to be bringing us in line. Okay, localizer and glide slope. Definitely offset. Might actually follow it down and correct it at the last minute, just to see how the instrument handles the landing. Okay. Flaps. Definitely on the glide slope.
Flaps 60% set.
Pull back our RPMs a bit more.
Overspeed flaps 80%. Flaps 80% set.
Actually, I'm going to send those back in. All those lights. Better make sure that that's open, 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 open. Oil cooler flaps open. Good. Hopefully that'll avoid my engines catching fire. I seem to be a little bit on the high side here. Oh, no. This is bringing us in line quite nicely, actually. Okay. 2,000 feet over the ground, according to the radio altimeter. So now seems like a pretty good time to drop our landing gear. Nose light on. I think we can bring our engine RPM right the way back. We're looking good. We're on the glide slope. The lights are good. Go to next flap setting.
Flaps 80% set.
Outer marker. Full flaps.
Flaps 100%.
Yeah, that time to disengage, autopilot.
Autopilot is disengaged.
bit scary. Got to get those RPMs down again. It's difficult. Whoops. Doing too many things at once. Okay, just remembering now yet again.
100.
Okay, we're definitely going long.
50.
Almost halfway down the runway.
Speed down.
RPMs all the way down. Not a great landing. Not great at all. We almost lost it on the approach. So let's just turn on our brakes there for the moment. Buzzing will be coming from over there. And this is why you set up your lights regardless. Either way, let's just hop out for a moment. Okay. Buzzing, the buzzing, the buzzing. What have we got there causing the buzzing? As I said, still getting to know a bit of this. Let's disconnect the autopilot. This is initially what I thought was a stall warning. All of our engines are still running. So let's just taxi to the gate, shall we? pole. I have not here That's annoying me so much. I think. There we go. Sorry about that. Let's get the doors. Stairs. We could at least get some ground power, I guess. Hopefully the buzzing won't return. Nope, good. We got lights though. Rear doors. Rear stairs. And cargo. Engines are off, so we can now turn off our position lights and of course our nav lights. Thank you. All up. We hope you enjoyed the flight. Bit of a nail biter there at the end, but a mostly manual flight on the Lockheed Constellation. Perhaps I might do another recording with it all on full auto. Quite frankly, I find that a little bit boring with the AI managing it, the engines, although it does make life a lot easier. Might need to on a very long flight. But either way, I hope you got something out of this at least. And welcome to KLM, the Flying Dutchman, because we know you definitely had a choice.